I made the decision to execute the strategy I had been considering for some time on the day my dad returned home. I added the medicine to his tea, giving it a good swirl to ensure it dissolved fully. I then gave him the cup and watched, unperturbed, as he drank it all. Noticing that the medicine would take 4 hours to kick in, we left the house shortly after. We had to exercise patience because the medicine was supposed to render him unconscious. My dad's house has CCTV cameras, so I hooked them up to my phone so I could watch everything that happened there, even while I wasn't present. It was a wise decision, and knowing that I could always see what was happening brought me comfort. 5 hours later, I looked at my phone and began to watch the live feed. My dad was fully unconscious, laying on the living room couch, just as I had anticipated. He wasn't even moving. That's when I was caught off guard. Lauren, my dad's girlfriend, entered the room and discovered him unconscious. She approached him and smacked him in the face in an attempt to rouse him up, rather than freaking out or running for assistance. But he merely lay there, unconscious, giving no response at all. Lauren accomplished something unexpected instead of being alarmed or anxious. She became animated and began to hop up and down. She seemed to have been waiting for this very time. She took out her phone and made a video call to someone after her small celebration. There was a man with a broad smile on his face who answered the phone. Lauren informed him, "Baby, the old fool is dead. We own wealth." She firmly believed that my dad had passed away and that she would now receive his entire estate. My dad had modified his will to give everything to Lauren, but Lauren had been tricked into thinking that. It all began when my dad told us Lauren was his new girlfriend and introduced her to our family. We initially assumed he was kidding. My dad is 75 years old, and his name is Scott. Now that I'm an adult, most of my siblings and I are married. My wife and I still intend to have children, although my 3 older siblings are now parents. My father is a well-off man, together with my late mother. They started from the ground up 2 prosperous beverage companies. They put in countless hours to establish their businesses, and as a result, their items are well known. My dad never remarried, and my mom passed away 12 years ago. We were so astonished when he unexpectedly called us all at once and presented us to Lauren. We believed that day that my dad had called us together for one of his customary family gatherings, during which he provides us counsel. But we were all in disbelief when we saw Lauren. We were baffled as to how she could be in a relationship with someone as old as my dad, since she appeared so youthful. Initially, I assumed she was merely a new housekeeper he had brought on board. However, my father introduced her with pride, adding, "This is Lauren, my new girlfriend. Please treat her with the same decency that you do for me. Nobody has expressed interest in me since your mother passed away, but Lauren did. I'm content with her." I was confused and angry at the same time when I heard this. How did they come to be together? When did this romantic partnership begin? Did they truly feel in love? I couldn't help but wonder what she wanted from us. "Does she even love you?" I asked my father. With confidence, he responded, "She loves me." After a month of dating, I can't express how content I felt. She feels the same way, baby, and she's the nicest thing that has happened to me since your mother. Lauren gave me a nod, but I wasn't sold. My dad was 75 years old, and she was only 27. Given their stark age differences, it was difficult for her to think she could ever love him. "How old are you?" Still attempting to make sense of the situation, I asked Lauren. I was astonished to learn that she was 27. It supported my theories. The only reason a young lady like her would be drawn to a man my dad's age is because of his wealth. I had no doubts that she was after his fortune. I tried to talk sense into his ears and said, "Dad, you need to break up with her. She's too young, and you can't seriously think she's in love with you." However, my dad would not listen because his love for Lauren was too strong. He thought she really did love him, but I knew otherwise. I was more sure than ever that she was only with him for the benefits she might obtain, especially after seeing her rejoice on the security camera film. "She's young enough to be your grandchild, Dad, and I'm 52. It doesn't feel right at all." What I was seeing and hearing was beyond belief. My father, a 70-year-old guy, was seeing a woman who was just 27 years old on a serious basis. It was difficult for me to comprehend the stark disparity in age. It turned out that I wasn't alone in feeling this way. My sister immediately chimed in, her voice solid and uncompromising, confirming what I had said. She turned to Lauren and said, "Dad, this is wrong in so many ways. And you, young lady, there's no way you're genuinely in love with my father." I find it hard to believe. But Lauren didn't seem to mind that we couldn't believe it. She gave us a serious look and said, "I know you find it difficult to believe someone so young," in a calm and collected manner. "But please know that I really do really like your dad. I've never been drawn to younger men, which is why I've never been in a relationship. I've never regretted a day I spent with your dad. He's the first man I've dated. I cherish him." Her words were smooth and convincing. Even I had to admit she was good with her words. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it that made it so believable. She didn't need to do much more than talk, and somehow she managed to lower our defenses. My sister and I exchanged looks, still skeptical, but also unsure of how to respond. Could she be telling the truth? Could someone so young really fall for a man so much older? We spent the rest of that day at my dad's house, trying to get to know Lauren better. She was incredibly hospitable, going out of her way to make us feel comfortable. She even prepared a delicious meal for us. And my sister, who rarely complimented anyone, couldn't stop raving about how good the food was. Lauren was so thoughtful that she even packed some extra food for my sister to take home, knowing how much she had enjoyed it. There was something so humble and down-to-earth about Lauren that made it hard to dislike her. She was kind, polite, and seemed genuinely interested in our family. After that day, we met Lauren a couple more times, and with each meeting, our skepticism slowly began to fade. She was consistent in her kindness and care, always making sure my dad was happy and well taken care of. My dad, who had been lonely for so long after my mom passed away, seemed to have found new joy in life with Lauren by his side. He would call me nearly every evening, his voice full of excitement as he recounted the day's events. He talked about how Lauren helped him with everything from cooking to laundry, even washing the dishes after meals. They went out on dates regularly, and he always sounded so happy, almost like he was reliving the days when my mom was still alive. It was strange, but in a way, it felt like my mom had come back into our lives, not in the same form, but through Lauren. As the months passed, my siblings and I found ourselves growing fond of Lauren. We couldn't help it. She was just so lovable. She wasn't just there for my dad. She also took an interest in our lives. I owned a small restaurant at the time, and although it wasn't very big, Lauren would often stop by to help me out with various tasks. She was always willing to lend a hand, whether it was in the kitchen or with organizing things around the place. My older siblings, who had children of their own, also appreciated her help. She would visit them from time to time and offered to babysit or help with whatever they needed. About 6 months into their relationship, my dad dropped another bombshell on us. He and Lauren were getting married. I remember the day he invited us over to share the news. He was practically glowing with excitement, like a young man who had just fallen in love for the first time. But there was something strange about the whole thing. According to my dad, Lauren had proposed to him. She had taken him out on a date at a nice restaurant, and in the middle of their meal, she had pulled out a ring and asked him to marry her. I was stunned. It's not every day you hear about a woman proposing to a man, especially not in a situation like this. It was supposed to be the other way around, wasn't it? Why would she take the initiative to propose after just 8 months of dating? It didn't add up. When we asked my dad why she did it, he said that Lauren was afraid he might not want to marry her because of the age difference. She was worried that he would hesitate, thinking she was too young. So she decided to prove that she was serious about their relationship by proposing to herself. My dad thought it was cute and thoughtful, a sign of her commitment and readiness for marriage. I wasn't so sure. The whole situation felt off, but my dad seemed genuinely happy, and Lauren continued to be as sweet and supportive as ever. It was hard to argue against the marriage when both of them seemed so certain about it. I wanted to believe that Lauren's intentions were pure, that she truly loved my dad and wasn't just after his money. But there was always that nagging doubt in the back of my mind, the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The wedding was a small affair, just close family and a few friends. My dad was over the moon, and Lauren looked radiant in her wedding dress. As I watched them exchange vows, I couldn't help but wonder if this was really what was best for him. Could a marriage built on such an unusual foundation really last? Only time would tell. In the weeks following the wedding, things seemed to settle into a routine. Lauren moved in with my dad, and they started their new life together. My siblings and I continued to visit, and each time, Lauren was as warm and welcoming as ever. She made my dad happy, and that was what mattered most. But despite her charm and the way she had won us over, there was still a part of me that remained cautious, always watching for signs that her intentions might not be as genuine as they seemed. Looking back now, I realized that my initial concerns were valid. Lauren had been very strategic in the way she presented herself to us, carefully crafting an image of the perfect partner for my dad. She knew exactly what to say and do to win our trust, and in the end, we were all taken in by her act. But as time went on, the cracks in her facade began to show, revealing a different side of her, one that was more focused on what she could gain than on truly loving and caring for my father. It's hard to admit, but I should have trusted my instincts from the beginning. My dad deserved better, and it pains me to think that we didn't see through Lauren's act until it was too late. Love can be blind, and sometimes it takes more than just good intentions to protect the people we care about. At first, I thought the same as everyone else. It made sense to me that Lauren might have believed my dad would never marry her because of the significant age gap between them. So when she proposed to him herself, I saw it as a clear sign that she was genuinely ready for marriage. That's what I convinced myself to believe. So I decided to support her in every way I could. My siblings seemed to share the same reasoning. We all came to an agreement that their marriage was okay, even if deep down we had our doubts. It wasn't as if our disagreement would have stopped the wedding anyway. Our dad was determined to go through with it. As we began preparing for the wedding, I noticed something that seemed a bit off. Lauren was very insistent on having a court wedding instead of the traditional church ceremony. This struck me as odd, given that our family had always valued religious ceremonies. I voiced my concerns, and my siblings did the same. We felt that a church wedding would be more appropriate and meaningful, especially considering my dad's age and the traditions we were used to. My dad found himself torn between wanting to make Lauren happy and holding on to his own values. He wanted to give her the court wedding she asked for, but the idea didn't sit well with him. It was a tough situation, and we spent a lot of time discussing it. Lauren was clearly disappointed when we pushed back against her wishes, but eventually, we managed to convince her to go with the church wedding instead. Although she reluctantly agreed, it was clear that she wasn't happy about the decision. On the day of the wedding, something felt off again. Lauren didn't seem as excited as we had expected. Her demeanor was subdued, and she didn't have the radiant joy that most brides have on their wedding day. We were all fooled into thinking that she might have been feeling unwell, perhaps just dealing with a headache or pre-wedding jitters. We felt bad for her, and my sister in particular spent a lot of time comforting her and staying close to her throughout the day. We chopped it up to nerves and hoped that once the ceremony was over, everything would go back to normal. After the wedding, life for my dad and Lauren began. For the first 3 months, my siblings and I decided to give them some space. We thought it would be best to let them enjoy their new life together without us constantly dropping by. We wanted our dad to have all the fun and happiness he deserved with his new wife. Looking back, I realized now that this was a mistake, a silly one that we would later regret. It wasn't until 5 months later that I finally visited my dad. As soon as I saw him, I noticed something was different. He seemed quieter than usual, and it was clear that he had lost some weight. His clothes looked a bit looser, and his face had a tired, worn-out look that I wasn't used to seeing. When I asked him if he was okay, he put on a smile and assured me that everything was fine, but I knew my dad too well. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and I could tell that something was bothering him. While we were talking, Lauren walked into the living room. I noticed that my dad flinched slightly as she entered, which made me frown. It was a subtle reaction, but it was enough to raise my suspicions even more. Lauren greeted me with her usual cheerful smile and sat down next to my dad, resting her head on his shoulder. We chatted for a while, but the whole time I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I made the decision to speak with Lauren privately as I prepared to leave. In an attempt to learn more about my dad's situation, I invited her to accompany me on a walk to my car. I turned to face her as we were walking and inquired, "Is my dad okay? He has a unique appearance, and he acts strangely. What is happening?" I saw Lauren's happy disposition rapidly disappear. She avoided my glance and cast her eyes to the ground. In a quiet, frustrated voice, she finally stated, "Your dad isn't making me happy, Scott. Since our marriage, he has remained aloof. Sometimes he pushes me away, and other times he even orders me out of the bedroom." Her remarks came as a huge brick to me. "What? Are you telling the truth? You're sent out of the room by him?" I was hearing things that I couldn't believe. "Yes," she answered, casting a sorrowful yet irate glance at me. "Is it really true? Even though I'm his wife and a young woman, he treats me badly." Discerning herself, she shook her head. I was taken aback. This was nothing like my dad. He had always been kind, especially to the people he cared about. I became much more concerned after hearing Lauren explain his actions. There was undoubtedly a problem, and I had to find the cause. I walked out of our talk feeling sad. All of the things Lauren had told me were on repeat in my mind. The perception of my father as aloof and dismissive of her didn't align with the person I knew. However, I also couldn't deny that Lauren was sincere in her upset. I had begun to think that perhaps she actually did care about my dad, because she had always been so kind to him and our family. I wasn't so sure now, though. I spent the following several days trying to piece together what could be going on. After talking to my siblings, I learned that they had also observed certain changes in our dad while they were here. He appeared to have lost some of his former verve and had become quieter and more reclusive. Though none of us could quite put our finger on it, we could all agree that something wasn't right. I finally made the decision to speak with my dad face to face. I had to hear him tell it as it was and see what the genuine situation was. I sat him down and begged him to be honest with me when I saw him again. I informed him of Lauren's words and shared my worries on his conduct and well-being. He'd attempted to dismiss it at first, saying that everything was all right. Despite his attempts to conceal the reality, I persisted and told him so. He let out a final sigh and acknowledged that things hadn't gone as smoothly as he had intended. Although he loved Lauren, he informed me that the age gap was beginning to wear him down. Relationship stress was arising since he was finding it difficult to match her enthusiasm and needs. He acknowledged feeling bad for not being able to provide Lauren with the life she deserved. He felt as like he was stifling her because he knew how young and full of life she was. That explained his lack of closeness and his occasional nighttime expulsion of her from the room. The possibility that their relationship would not turn out as he had hoped was something he didn't want to confront. My heart hurt to hear this. Normally a robust, self-assured man, my dad appeared weak and uncertain these days. It was painful to realize that he was facing this alone, even though I could see he was having difficulties. I reassured him that my siblings and I would be here to support him and that he didn't have to face this alone. It also occurred to me that Lauren wasn't totally at fault. It wasn't fair to criticize her without taking into account that she had her own challenges and expectations. I realized I had to speak with her once more, but with greater understanding and compassion. Ultimately, I discovered that partnerships, particularly those involving such a large age difference, have unique difficulties. It wasn't easy for either of them to negotiate the challenging scenario that my dad and Lauren were in. The most important thing was that they were both determined to make it work and were prepared to work hard to get over their challenges. I had a range of feelings when I left my dad's house that day. Though there was still plenty to work through, I had faith that my dad and Lauren could find happiness in their marriage with time and honest communication. We would be there for them every step of the journey as a family. It seems like he doesn't love me, even though I deserve his attention. Lauren said, "Jack, I'm so sad." I felt so bad to hear her say that. I have to admit that I felt bad for her because it sounded like she was truly hurt. I assured her I would attempt to figure out what was going on by speaking with my dad. After expressing her gratitude, she left the house. When I went to see my dad the following time, I saw that things had gotten worse. Compared to earlier, he was more reserved and hardly spoke to me. His actions were so peculiar that I became anxious and frustrated. I left his house in a rage, not knowing what to do since I could take it no more. I got an unexpected call from my dad's attorney as I was leaving. He told me my dad had been in touch with him recently to modify his will. My dad wanted to leave everything to Lauren, the lawyer said. I was astonished to hear this news. Something like this caught me off guard right away. I never expected it. I made the decision to tell my siblings about this, in an attempt to ascertain the true nature of the situation. We all decided to pay our dad a visit. When we got to his place 6 days later, it was strangely quiet and deserted. To my astonishment, when I rushed up to his room, he was unconscious and lying on the floor. We hurried him to the hospital after I swiftly called my siblings to offer assistance. Lauren's response surprised me when I saw her at the hospital. "Is he dead?" was the first thing she said. "I can't let him die just yet. Has he already modified his will? He's not going to die." I got a shiver from what she said. How could she care more about the will than if my father was still alive? Although my father wasn't dead, her response raised serious doubts in my mind. I went up to her and said, "What are you saying? My dad is still alive." "Well, he said he had some changes to do," stammered Lauren, suddenly chilled. She scratched her head. I was afraid he might not get the opportunity to achieve that before passing away. Whatever became of my husband? Her actions just increased my suspicions. Why was she concentrating so much on the will? And why would she presume he was dead right away? Unless she had some other agenda, it didn't make sense. At last, my dad opened his eyes and began sobbing violently. He refused to tell us why he was so angry, even when we tried to console him. To my further skepticism, he asked Lauren to exit the room instead. My siblings and I both felt that something was really wrong. We started to worry that Lauren was just after our dad's money, and that she might be abusing him. We couldn't miss the major signal that she was extremely worried about the will. We also wondered why our father would want to make such a big alteration to his will all of a sudden. He didn't usually make decisions like this without talking to us first. We began to suspect that perhaps Lauren had coerced him into doing it. It was unusual enough on its own that she had been the one to propose marriage in the first place. We devised a strategy because we were determined to know the truth. We made the decision to investigate on our own as we knew that our dad would never let us know if something was amiss. We had a conversation with the family physician who had been my dad's caretaker for many years before we left the hospital. We told him about our worries and pleaded for his assistance because we had total faith in him. The medication the doctor offered us might put a person to sleep for up to a full day, giving the impression that they were deceased. We were going to utilize this to test Lauren's reaction in the event that she believed my dad was dead. In order to give us time to covertly place cameras throughout their home, we also made arrangements for Lauren to stay in the hospital with my dad for an additional 3 days. We could then keep an eye on everything that transpired once they got back home. I mixed the medicine thoroughly into my dad's tea the day he got home to make sure he wouldn't notice anything out of the ordinary. We knew the medicine would take 4 hours to work fully after he drank it, so we left the house. To watch everything in real time, I had connected the cameras to my phone. Anxiously, we awaited the revelation of Lauren's true intents through our arrangements. The cameras we set up allowed me to see and hear everything that was going on in my dad's house. I started watching the video on my phone 7 hours later. As expected, my dad had passed out in the living room. I was stunned by what transpired next. My dad was unconscious in the room when Lauren entered. She tried to rouse him up by slapping him, but instead of freaking out or running for help, my dad was completely unconscious, which astonished me. He didn't move at all. Even more unsettling was what Lauren did after that. Rather than show signs of worry or anxiety, she began to hop up and down, obviously excited. She seemed to have been waiting for this very time. She hastily took out her phone and placed a video call to someone following her little party. I heard her say, "The old fool is dead, baby," to a man on the other end of the call. "We own wealth." She truly believed that my dad had passed away and that she would soon receive his entire estate. Lauren was duped by the lawyer, which she was unaware of. The lawyer informed me that Lauren had been to see him and inquired about the will after he had called. He told her a falsehood, sensing that something was off, claiming that my dad had actually amended his will to give her everything. The attorney knew how to handle the case because he had worked with our family for a long time. I was really appreciative of his prompt thoughts. I called my siblings and the cops right away, while Lauren was partying with the man on the phone. All of us hurried to my dad's house with the intention of catching her in the act. Lauren was shocked beyond belief as we barged into the house. She made an unsuccessful attempt to flee. She was handcuffed and brought directly to the station by the police. It was found in the police station that Lauren had been planning to con my dad with her boyfriend, a 24-year-old. They were both brought to court after the boyfriend was also taken into custody. When my dad learned the truth, he was devastated, but he didn't let it stop him. He severed all contact with Lauren right away and got a divorce. My dad was finally honest with us when Lauren was taken into custody. He acknowledged that she had been mistreating him physically and mentally. In addition, he acknowledged that he felt guilty and let down by himself for not seeing through her sooner. He was happy, though, that we had freed him from her snare. In addition, my dad was very clear that he would never date or get married to anyone again. Relationships were over for him after this awful incident. Lauren was accused of fraud and both physical and emotional abuse in court. Her lover was given 20 years in prison for being an accomplice, while she was given a 30-year sentence. Lauren started crying and apologizing to us as she was being taken away. Lauren's parents, who were also crying, informed us that their daughter had escaped from home and they had mistakenly believed her to be lost. Although we were sorry for them, we also recognized that Lauren needed to pay a price for her actions. She was nothing more than a greedy person attempting to profit from my father's generosity and resources. I appreciate you seeing. Please remember to subscribe by clicking the I subscribed comment below. We will try our best to respond to your comment.